We are indeed live for this podcast, John. So we're ready for your questions whenever you're ready, sir.
It's exciting.
Yeah, let's do it. Number one.
All right. So tell me a little bit about your background, how you ended up in the CBD industry, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, so it's actually a little bit of a funny story. I actually come from an athletics background. I also went to the University of Michigan. Was lucky enough to play some soccer there, and I was also able to study, neuroscience, pharmaceuticals, and alternative wellness. And, through my athletics and through a lot of my studies, I found out that sometimes the alternative wellness methods can actually be better for you than the pharmaceutical methods. So I just took a very deep interest, not only in CBD, but a bunch of different, let's call it methods for healing and, other things, other ways that others and like the most social medias don't really, shed light on.
So you don't just work in the industry, you're actually a part of the industry.
Yeah, I would say I use CBD products pretty frequently, post my soccer days and post, just normal, gym life. I have some, strains and body aches that I use a lot of, CBD products, to release, tension, stress, aches, muscle aches, kind of stuff like that.
That's cool. Do you tell your friends about it and stuff?
Yeah.
Family, you kind of push it?
It depends. With my family, so. I got a little bit of a split household when it comes to, alternative wellness. But when it comes to, all my friends, families, anyone I really kind of run into, today, I always, try to, recommend some type of CBD or hemp products that could help them instead of, using some of those different pharmaceutical ones that could have, worse short-term or long-term, implications.
Right. What are the biggest challenges with, getting CBD products? I know some states
can't
get it, some states can.
It's legality, CBD is still, paired up with, the cannabis or the marijuana plant, which both of these products come from the same plant at the end of the day. It's just, the hemp. It's just unfortunate that cannabis and marijuana has the history in the U.S. that it does, because when it actually comes to CBD and hemp products, there's nothing really, psychoactive about them. You use them on your skin, you can take them via gummy form. You really use them in any way that, can benefit yourself, in a very legal and compliant manner. So I guess some state legality, some of the challenges with buying it online. I think the biggest challenges with CBD as a business owner are honestly kind of, the space that we're in. It's payment processing, you have the marketing. It's also a very saturated market, where a lot of people are trying to get into this, CBD space with the same products, but everyone's kind of selling the same thing. So I would say distribution, manufacturing can be a challenge. But I don't know. These people deal with, so much stress, so much ache, and so much pain that I feel like it's every week or month something else comes up, that these business owners have to deal with.
Right. That's the question really, getting a merchant processing account, getting your company legally within regulations of state and local laws and all of that stuff. Tell me a little bit about that. Just tell me about tell me about just really the banking merchant processing type of scenario and how you go about dealing with that.
When it actually,
headache, for lack of a better term.
When it comes to the actual product, there isn't really anything, risky about it. Because remember, it's non-psychoactive, so you're taking more of a wellness and health lifestyle kind of choice. The real reason that it's considered in this high-risk category is just because of its history with cannabis. CBD products are known as high-risk because of the reputational risk. Also being an e-commerce product, there's a lot of, high chargebacks and high fraud that you can deal with as a business owner from that standpoint. But I think the biggest one, and the reasons that banks look at CBD in this, especially in the merchant processing world, as high risk, is just because they don't know the products that well. They don't know the industry. It's only really been around compliantly since 2015, and then again in the merchant processing world more in 2018. So it's just an industry where banks aren't really used to them. Individuals that are against cannabis or against CBD that have their direct deposit accounts at a bank could feel as though it's unfair that other CBD companies are doing their direct deposits there and would actually want to take their monies out and go somewhere else. So at the end of the day, it's more just reputation for the banks and why it makes it hard for CBD business owners to open payment processing accounts.
Well, how do you deal with that? You're an expert in payment processing. You've been in the space a long time. You've worked with hundreds of CBD companies, getting them set up really at the end of the day. How do you deal with that when you have a big chargeback history or perhaps maybe bad credit rating, stuff like that? How do you deal with getting people approved? How do you deal with kind of the whole business in general.
Yeah, it's pairing yourself with companies that understand, your vertical. Like here specifically at TouchSuite, we have the internal underwriting team, the internal risk team. We have the internal legal team, the lobbyists to really understand what a good compliant CBD business looks like. And that's why it's so easy for us to really approve these deals. But not every single story is, perfect. Sometimes you have CBD deals that come with low cash flow, bad COAs. And fortunately, we've seen so many CBD deals over the last 5 years that we really have the capabilities, fortunate with our banking partners and all of our other partners, to really know how to advise and how to aid these business owners with the correct instructions on how to get them internally approved with us here at TouchSuite.
Like, what is the conversation when you go to trade shows and everything?
Conversations.
What is it like? Is it
they're all different.
Is it a free for all? Are people like freaking out, or what's it? Because at any given time they can be shut down, right?
Yeah. I mean, it really depends. I mean, fortunately now CBD's been around where it isn't as difficult to actually get approved and onboarded with a CBD account. The real issue is actually finding a CBD account that's long term and stress free, and that's kind of what it is mostly at these shows. I wouldn't really say it's mayhem like it was in 2018, 2019. It's definitely calmed a little bit more, but you'll still hear it almost every single time you go to a show. Hey, my merchant processor did this. Oh, my agent miscoded me. So that's why it's so important trying to find correct players like TouchSuite to play in this game. Because at the end of the day, the CBD industry, what makes you the most successful is just being at the table and staying at the table long term. And what most people don't know is actually choosing a correct payment provider is one of the most key components to your business when you want to be part of that long-term success.
And does it work? I mean, you can do it online, you can do it offline, retail. How does that work exactly?
Well, it depends on the bank and the payment provider you choose. Specifically here with TouchSuite, we're omni-channel. So if you want to do e-commerce, if you want to do B2B transactions, electronic invoicing, keyed-in transactions, anything from your app. You want to, sell a B2B product to a smoke shop you're just walking by, you can have the payment providing gateway on your phone. As being omni-channel, we could really provide any way that you want. We just like to, evaluate our merchants with every single type of method that they want to take.
Now, what about new product development? Let's just shift gears a little bit and talk about new products. What are some of the cool products that you've seen
out in the industry?
What are some of the latest inventions in the CBD world?
Well, for me specifically,
hemp's been around for
ages.
So.
I think one of the ones for me specifically is the CBD coffee. That's actually one of the reasons I use CBD a lot is I deal with a lot of, stress and anxiety. Specifically when I sleep, the CBNs are awesome. I take one of those instead of melatonin. I wait about 20, 30 minutes, fall asleep like a baby, wake up feeling amazing. And then again, when I start my day, I've always used coffee and caffeine as something to keep me up and going throughout my day. But I've always had to deal with the anxiety component, which always hasn't been my favorite. And I was actually at a show. This is the Alt Pro Expo. I think it was in November of last year. I forgot the name of the company, but I was just walking by. They had some CBD coffee. I tried it out, and I got the awesome energy up and boost from the caffeine while also getting that reduction in anxiety from the CBD.
What's it taste like?
It tastes good. It actually doesn't taste like CBD whatsoever. The CBD has a taste. That's mostly if you do the extracts, or that's if you do some type of tincture on your lip, or you'll kind of smell it a little bit when you put it on your skin, but most companies do a really good job with the actual tastier products of not having the CBD or hemp flavor.
And does it still have the bitterness of coffee? Does it still have?
Yeah. Well, it depends how you mix it up, right? It depends what brew you get. Most, are going to taste like regular coffee until you add some type of, adaptations or mixes to it as well.
And what other products have you seen that you think, what new products have you seen? Obviously, you could add CBD to anything, but what new products have you seen that you were like,
I think the seltzers.
This is going to take over.
I think the seltzers and the beverages are definitely kind of the up and up. I mean, they kind of been the up and up in Minnesota for the last few months. That's where a lot of the individuals I personally work with on the beverage game. But yeah, I mean, kind of replacing the seltzer, the alcohol seltzer industry. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the Nelk Boys and some of these margarita seltzers based out of alcohol. So there's actually companies within CBD and hemp that are creating margarita flavored seltzers that actually have 5 milligrams of THC per drink. So it doesn't knock your socks off like a typical edible would, but this is something you can kind of casually drink at the beach or drink at the bar, without having that hangover the next day, or
And how
making
does that-
some of those crazy decisions.
How does
right?
that work with the importing of that? So let's say it's manufactured in Minnesota. Are you able to export it to Nevada? Are you able to
Yeah,
export it
so you have to make sure, depending on the hemp-derived cannabinoid and the product that you're shipping out of a state, that it's legal within the state that it's going to as well.
Right, because you're obviously not gonna. What if you're driving through a state? I've heard of things like that where you're driving through a state, you get stuck, and it's a state that doesn't have legalized marijuana, not only for medical but recreational.
Yeah, fortunately, I haven't had any, personal experience with these run-ins, and fortunately, none of my merchants have had run-ins like this. But of course, if you are thinking of either, shipping or driving from state to state, you want to make sure that you pay attention to your hemp and CBD laws of what you're allowed to bring over state lines. And, the good thing is when you come, or if you decide to take a look at TouchSuite, that is something that we do in our underwriting process before approval. We make sure we give you all the correct guidelines and federal laws when it comes to not only taking purchases on your website, but doing B2B payments, and also doing logistical and supply chains decision like Mr. John here described.
Are people liable for incidences that happen through payment processing?
Yes.
Any of that?
100%.
So 100% falls on the company that gets the merchant processing.
Yeah. So for example,
so the underwriting department would kind of give them
a recommendation, right?
Right.
Well, it's not really a recommendation. It's really more, black or white. At the end of the
right.
day, it's either do this and get approved, or don't do this and don't get approved. I mean, it depends really on what that stature or what that change is.
Do you work with companies to help them change their model in the legalities so that they can get and keep a merchant process?
I wouldn't really say the word is specifically change. I would say the word is more educate, just because of how many hurdles and how many headaches and pain points they have to deal with their day in and day out. There's some type of not some type, but there's some part of the industry or the legality that kind of just gets misted over just because they deal with so much more in their day in and day out. And that's where companies like us, especially from the payment side, because again, payments runs our world, and it can also put you up for a lot of risk and liability when it comes to federal law. So we got to make sure that we do all the correct things at the beginning before we approve them.
I assume companies that were only taking cash prior have doubled, tripled, quadrupled their business.
Yeah.
Once getting a merchant processing.
Oh yeah, I think the first 6 months, once you start taking credit card processing, especially from the e-commerce point of view, especially in these hot markets, within the high risk consumer packaged good, it's anywhere between 10 to 30% in your first 6 months of increased revenue.
Wow.
Once you start taking credit cards online.
That's a huge amount of increase, and I'm sure any business owner would be thrilled. I assume everybody's best friends with you once you get them approved for a merchant account.
Yeah, but not only that.
Do they take you to dinner?
Funny enough, I take them to dinner more. No, just jokes. But I've had luckily enough, I've had some good business partners and good merchants that have honestly turned into really good friends over the last few years since I kind of got started. That I've had some, I've gone to some of their graduations, some of their family events, barbecues and stuff.
Well, talk to me more about that. Do you get called for, as like almost a consultant because of your in-depth knowledge of the industry? Do you get, like even after you, finish doing quote unquote business with them, do they call you occasionally? Speak to you about?
Yeah, none of my relationships. That's why I wouldn't really say what my position really is sales. I would say it's more of a payment processing educator and kind of fintech educator within these high risk markets. And it's just specifically the relationship only really starts for me between myself and a merchant once they get approved and they start processing. Especially in industries like CBD and the high risk, there is so much changing month to month, week to week, year to year that you really have to give them that white glove service to make sure that merchant account is long-term and stress-free. And, at the end of the day, especially within merchant services, you want to make sure that you really connect with your merchants, build real relationships with them, because those are the individuals that are going to be your real advocates for new business development. They're also going to be the ones that build your credibility and reliability, which is probably the most important thing that you could gather and protect within the CBD and hemp industry.
So what happens if if they have an issue? Let's say they're processing for 3 or 4 months. Once you get processing, your business is running. Yeah. What happens if there's an interruption? They do something wrong. Maybe they ship to the wrong state. Maybe something happens. Do you get involved then to help them how does that work? To
Yeah,
get them back up and running quickly.
Yeah, and that's the biggest difference between kind of working through TouchSuite, as a wholesaler and a full service provider compared to some of the other players, like Square, Stripe, some of the other third party providers in this industry. Is whenever one of our merchants has an issue, maybe they did something without knowing it, maybe they just had to update a COA or a certain type of product. Most relationships and most third parties, you would have the bank or the processor reach out to you directly, giving you some type of warning or telling you, hey, if you don't do this by that date, then you have to remove it. Working with us, it's different because the underwriting team gets informed and the risk team get informed by the bank. And then the bank and then the underwriting and risk team internally here then go ahead and they inform me. And then it's my role to make sure that I reach out to my merchants, communicate, if there was a non-compliance slip up or maybe there's some type of new update that they wanted, and I get together with them to figure out the best way to keep them rocking and rolling long-term and stress-free.
That's pretty cool. So you're kind of like an outsourced consultant.
It is to some extent. I mean, it's mostly.
I assume there are a lot of like little headaches just based on the perception of what hemp is. They're probably just little minor
on like the banking end and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's
misunderstanding of X, Y, and Z.
It's just new. It's like anything new in the world and in life. It takes certain individuals that are used to certain structures and organizational kind of sectors to get used to new products and new industries, and that's just what it is. It's a lack of education and knowledge that is just going to come with some time for the banks and all these other government entities to really understand what CBD and hemp can do, not only for the U.S. and the economy, but what it can do from an alternative wellness standpoint for the entire world.
So when you got into the industry, you had already known about all of its alternate medicine applications and whatever. Is that why you Is that really why you chose to sort of focus on this vertical to really ingrain yourself in it? Or?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about my journey, I don't think anybody really decides to get into the payment processing space specifically. I kind of just, stumbled on it, by accident. Obviously, TouchSuite is owned by Sam Zeitz. He's also UMich alum, and that's how I got connected over to him. He gave me a phenomenal opportunity, and I just decided to join, full on. I had some understanding of payment processing, but I didn't really understand, the industries that I was, getting into. And then in November of 2021, Sam let me know, and he gave me the green light to, kind of go into the CBD industry. And the reason that I really delved into it is, number one, because I already understood the background. I knew the alternative wellness aspect to it and how it could help a lot more people, how it's helped myself and everybody that already uses it. But besides that, the biggest point was I just saw all the bad characters and all the malicious players within my role within the CBD industry, and I thought to myself, if I'm good to these people, if I fulfill all the promises that I give over the phone when it actually comes to the application and them using our services and solutions, I could be slightly, successful here. There's a little bit of meat on the bone here, and that actually, played completely true to my story. I remember as I was starting to close and, build a book of business, I kind of kept true to just being real, keeping all the promises you fulfill on the phone throughout the whole entire relationship and process. And that's really, led me to, be supported by CBD owners and merchants and really, pick up more interest, from my end, just to learn more about the industry and how else I can help these individuals.
Working with so many people, like getting involved in it, you must have seen a bunch of success stories.
Oh yeah, I've seen both.
Who is the right? Yeah, well, that's just business in general.
Yeah.
Success and failures. But what is the biggest success that you've seen from start to finish? You signed up a processor and bang, they just exploded.
How much time do you have? I mean, there's a time.
In that industry, it's everywhere. But who's really? Give me a couple of real standouts. And, I'd be curious to hear about.
Successfully the ones that have kind of started out with. I'll give some of the first ones. I started out with here at TouchSuite. I think the biggest successes that I've seen of how far they've gone and how much they've grown are. Specifically RDSB Farms and Smoke Unicorn were some of the first hemp and CBD companies.
What did they do? What's their product?
Yeah, they're doing more, hemp flower. They do gummies. They do some vape. They do B2B distillate. And these are just individuals that I got, connected with at the beginning, and I've seen them come so far.
Are they great marketers, or is it just...
They're great at everything. I mean, they do a lot. They have their own, I forgot how many acres it is out there in Oregon. Actually, if you guys see this, need to visit you guys. We'll get that planned soon. Yeah, they've been out there for a little bit. They do everything. They're a really good website. They do really good on the B2B sales channel, and they've just been some of the guys in Oregon that have been doing the CBD and hemp industry since the beginning, and just started monetizing it when the 2018 federal law came out.
So they figured it out as they were going along and everything, and probably just found some good channels.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly how their origin, story started. I just know that when I first found them, they had the farm. They were doing B2B. They were having some pain points here and there with all different parts of the market, and I was allowed to come in, and they brought me in as an educator from the payment processing side. And when I was able to build some, good reputation with them and good credibility, they started, trusting me with other pain points of their business, such as, marketing, other B2B channels for some of their terp sales, and, just a whole other different look than just simply, processing their payments, let's call it.
Right, and I would assume since they were one of the early people, they had this plan for years where they put the investment going, okay, let's hope the laws get passed and everything. Was that kind of there?
Yeah, so I actually found them after the 2018 federal hemp farm bill. So they were actually doing merchant services before I found them, and I was fortunate enough to find them in a time and place where they were actually struggling with their merchant services, and their sales agent wasn't really giving them the attention or the time or the value that he had first promised. Fortunately, they were willing, just because of the time and place that they were, to trust me with all of their merchant services. And usually in this industry, to fulfill someone's promises, it takes about 3 to 6 months after you sign them up. And once we got to that point in time, they kind of saw like, hey, Henry's word is true. We really want to build a relationship with this individual. And this actually, them too, they actually started the biggest referral channel for me at the beginning of my time here at TouchSuite.
So they've been a client of yours for a long time, man.
Yeah. I talked to them. I mean, I haven't talked to them in the last 2 months just because they've been working on a bunch of different projects, and I've taken more senior levels here at TouchSuite. But yeah, I mean, most of the time with most of my merchants, I would say I talk to them on a bi-monthly or at least on a monthly fashion, which is a few hundred of them, let's say.
And that's the thing, like a lot of people don't, you get some business services from people, they don't follow up, they don't care. Once the deal's signed, it's done. I mean, I guess you work in kind of a fun industry, though, with fun people, that I'm sure it's little less of a headache following up with your clients than most others.
Yeah, that's usually when I'm on a discovery call or prospecting somebody, usually when they say, hey, my guy hasn't reached out to me in the last few months. That's the biggest indication for, hey, this individual is, feeling some pain and not feeling enough attention, which when it comes to the high-risk game, and specifically CBD and hemp, it's one of the most important things you can have with a merchant account. Not only is it a compliant, reliable and good pricing structure account, but you also want to make sure that you have an agent that is, weekly or bi-monthly at least following up with you to make sure that they're keeping you up and running compliantly.
So where do you think the industry is going to go in the future? Where do you think, obviously it's going to explode even more because the more people, adopt to it and everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's
adapt to it.
Every single month it's something, new. I think the biggest thing, and that's
where do you see it 5 years from now?
Oh, I can't even take it 5 years, John, because at the point in time that the industry is in now is they have the 2023 federal hemp farm bill coming out, and that's something that a lot of hemp-derived cannabinoid companies, CBD companies, and also straight cannabis and marijuana companies have been waiting to come out. That's going to determine not only the next 5 years, but it's actually going to determine the next 25 years for the industry, because there's going to be a lot of conversations around what's hemp-derived, what's not, what are they going to classify, what cannabinoid in the COA, what's going to be allowed for banks and merchant processors to approve. So, whenever that, federal farm hemp bill comes out, it might be, really, really good for the hemp industry, really bad, or it might be really, really good for the cannabis industry or really bad. So I'm really excited to see how that's going to come out.
Who's the biggest winners out of that? Is it going to be the farmers? Is it going to be the manufacturers? Is it going to be the distributors? Who's the Who's going to win?
It's going to be unpredictable, just because there were so many predictions for the one in 2018, and when that bill came out, it brought out so many new markets and so many new questions that it actually went into a direction that nobody else would have thought. So I think based on how that went, it's really hard for me personally to predict where it's going to be 5-10 years. But I think the biggest conversation that's going to occur when this bill comes out is the hemp-derived cannabinoid industry still going to be a thing over the next few years, or is it going to become an industry that starts to become assimilated with the strictly cannabis and marijuana industry.
Right. Well, that's, as we know, a lot of bills.
Yeah, a lot of legal paperwork to go through, right?
A lot of laws passed, a lot of elections happened over the last, election cycle, and a lot of states approved either medical use marijuana or recreational. So I would assume, hemp is probably, since it's such a lighter experience, it's going to go through the roof. So let's do like a 2-second.
Yeah.
What do you advise somebody who's looking to get into the hemp industry? Where do you get in? Do you get in being a merchant processor? Do you become a grower? Do you?
What section of the space would I try?
Yeah, you've been in the industry a long time. You're kind of an expert at this point because you were in it in the infancy.
Well, if you're true to yourself, money doesn't make you greedy. You keep individuals and partners' needs first before yours. I think one of the best places in the space you can actually get into is where I'm at. The payment processing isn't as close to the products and the industry as I would like, but it's close enough where I actually have a short-term and a long-term impact. If I was actually deciding to get into the product side, I would, again, it's an extremely challenging industry. It's so saturated. So most of the individuals that make it big or are successful are very, very, intricate and smart individuals. But what I would do is I would try to build an alternative wellness brand, somewhere having to do with CBD, CBG, CBN, and start to build a B2B company selling to, the CVS's of the world, the Publix's, if you're in Florida, I'm sure, there's some others like those out of state. The chiropractic offices and the doctor's offices, because knowing those specific cannabinoids, those with the 2023 federal hemp farm bill aren't going to go anywhere. So no matter what that bill states, no matter what it changes, you're still always going to be able to do the CBD, CBG, and CBN sales or the non-psychoactive products. And that's kind of like the best channel to build a long-term and successful B2B business within CBD.
So, Henry, thanks a lot for, talking to us about the industry, all the banking regulations, the merchant processing aspect. This was great. We're obviously going to see you a lot more because we're going to be having a lot of chats here. So, look out for the next podcast.
No. Thank you, John. This is first of many, CBD community, CBD podcasters, and TouchSuite family. So looking forward to bringing on some more guests, doing some more podcast episodes and seeing what other type of value we can bring not only the CBD space but anyone out there that's listening to us here today.
And clearly, if anybody needs a merchant processing account in the CBD industry, you're the man to go to.
Yeah, and not even if you want an account, if you just want to be educated, have a conversation, have me look at a processing statement. We have an awesome team here at TouchSuite, and we're more than happy to educate and just have a conversation to see if we're a good home for you.
Well, thanks again, Henry.
Awesome,
Appreciate
John.
it.
Thanks for your time. Take care, guys. Thank you.